So, Trunks? That thing about multiverse theory? Yeah. It's certainly a female dog, isn't it? Hey folks, MasakoX here. We started this adventure with a very whimsical idea in mind. We thought, what might happen if Trunks' time machine didn't work, as it were? Well, I mean, it did, but it didn't. We'd go back in time, sure, just not to the time period that we would come to expect. One of the biggest ideas being, from you chums out there, to see what could occur if the hero of time ended up inadvertently meeting, perhaps, his young mother. Younger than him at the time. Time's weird. Seeing Bulma when she was 16, and him being 18, and well, yeah, she got the hots for him, much like how her older self did too. I guess things never change with age sometimes. Regardless from that, what would ultimately happen if Trunks met Bulma in the past? Well, for the most part, it was pretty wholesome teenage antics for the first couple of parts. It was a very cute story, I loved it. But things would get complicated when you pals gave me inspiration to press on with part 3. Of course, most of my what-ifs have a means to fix themselves if there is a massive change in stuff occurring. We can usually utilise what is available in the timeline proper, as well as stuff we learn afterwards, like what we know today, to make another path to an otherwise okay future. However, Trunks here is now getting a little bit too puffed up for his smoke box, a bit too heady for his own beliefs. In this timeline, he has realised that what he does here won't impact his own timeline. There is no consequence. He can do what he wants, in theory, and have no negative repercussions for his home dimension. But the things here though, ooh. So far, so good, it's been mainly fine. Trunks started off using his extra power and Super Saiyan strength to do good, to beat down Piccolo, and ensure peace would remain supreme. But when it came to Dragon Ball Z, however, things would get much more complicated when space decided to get involved. In the last part, we had the initial rumblings go down without a hitch. Trunks put his advanced knowledge to good use, and it did lead to training with Goku, that going quite smoothly, and them both getting extra strong than in the original. And indeed, Trunks understood Gohan to a T, so when he came along, he could tell Chi-Chi that the kid could strike a balance between scholarly pursuits, as well as the idea of getting strong and learning martial arts. Both parents would get what they want. It could be a really good stress reliever for long bouts of studying martial arts. It's quite cathartic and ensuring stress would not be a problem. And that goes for Chi-Chi too. The Dragon team also got stronger with Trunks being there, and despite Piccolo's best efforts, he would fall behind because he's obviously a grouch. But that didn't actually matter. He would hoodwink them all if the opportunity arose. And that it did. With Trunks leading the charge against Raditz, well okay, I say lead, he more accurately, figuratively led, coaching the others to deck the pineapple head in the schnoz, Piccolo slunk in and captured a slumbering Gohan and hightailed it out of Kame House. When the gang got back, Trunks had to come to terms with the fact that by helping the team, he hadn't helped the team. He had changed the course of Gohan's future. He might never become the bastion he looked up to, Gohan, because of him. Okay, let's resume this cheery story, shall we? We continue just after Goku had left on Nimbus in search for his son. The Saiyan, who had looked up to Trunks for years since he was a young boy, saw nothing but a power-hungry and selfish man now. What he thought was admirable was gone. This Trunks had gotten ideas above his station. Because of his lust for dominance, Gohan had been taken from him, and there was no clue as to where he had gone. Chi-Chi, who had spent time outside venting her lament with Ox King, unaware of the conversation that had been taking place, came in to check on the two, to see Goku gone, and Trunks holding back tears. Trunks? Are you alright? Where's Goku? He's gone to find Gohan. Piccolo took him. Chi-Chi's eyes widened. Piccolo? Why didn't you go and help Goku? Surely he would need you. He doesn't. He told me to stay here anyway. Chi-Chi, I did something terrible. Chi-Chi's face then softened a little, wrongly assuming that Trunks was just beating himself up over this. Trunks, this isn't your fault. You weren't to know that that demon would do something so devious. You've saved us so many times, from that evil brother of Goku's as well. Come join us. We could all do with some comfort right now. There's no use dwelling in solitude, right? Trunks muttered a little bit, sort of at acknowledgement, and Chi-Chi left to rejoin the others, thinking Trunks would catch up. But Trunks wouldn't. He looked out of the window. What can he do to fix this? Either way, he couldn't bring himself to stay here anymore. Goku wouldn't want to see his face right now, or maybe ever again. Without further thought, Trunks flew out of the window and out of sight. But somebody did see him. Bulma, who had been brooding outside, spotted the young man flying away, and she was curious to see where he was going. She made her excuses and told Yamcha to come with her in case it was bad. She wanted to see what the future boy was up to. But Bulma, aren't we needed here? What if there are more Saiyans coming? They could use our help! Trust me, Trunks knows our future like a book. If he's going somewhere, it's with purpose. Now stop being a baby and come with. Yamcha gulped, and the pair of them got in her ship and flew off in pursuit of Trunks. Where was he going? As that was happening, Goku was flying around on Nimbus so as to keep his power level down a fair bit, and he was desperately looking for any signs of Gohan's energy. He could sense Trunks flying off somewhere, but in a different direction, but after this initial acknowledgement, he paid no further mind to it since he was still mad at him, and continued his search. Suddenly, he felt something. Gohan had awoken, and he was not happy. His energy was flaring up a little bit, and that was enough for Goku to latch onto to give him some kind of a clue. Down with Piccolo and Gohan, the brat was crying, and Piccolo was being far less patient than he was in the original, and even then, he wasn't patient if you remember. He slapped the kid around a little bit and told him to shut up.
Listen up, Runt! Things are gonna change around here. That future boy said you were important or something. Well, I got news for you. He's got another thing coming. I'll make sure you become important on my terms, in my plan to take over this miserable world.
Where's my daddy?
He won't be finding us. When I'm through with you, he will be the one crying out for his daddy.
Gohan was absolutely beside himself with terror right now, which was the thing that Goku needed to find him. Good, Gohan. Don't worry, I'm coming! Goku headed off in the direction he sensed his son. Minutes later, Goku launched himself off of Nimbus and flew down to face his nemesis in a surprise attack and his son. Piccolo was surprised.
Goku! How did you find us?
Gohan, you did good. I could sense his energy as he was cowering from the likes of you. I'm gonna make you suffer for daring to hurt my son! Piccolo is trying to keep it together.
Where's your little bodyguard?
I don't need him to do what is necessary here. In fact, he's caused more trouble than he's worth.
Really? Piccolo's eyes flare. Took you long enough to understand that. It's a mistake to know your future. It makes things far less interesting. We should be allowed to forge our own destiny, not follow some pre-made instructions from a failed timeline. Nobody should tell us what to do.
Goku hated to admit it in the here and now, but this Piccolo had a point about. Was this part of his plan, though? To make him realize how Trunks was most likely dangerous? Well, not exactly. But Piccolo chose to go with this since he knew he couldn't face Goku one-on-one right now. In fact, this plan was even better. Get them to turn on Trunks, or at least make him go away and leave them alone so he can maybe catch up in his own time, Piccolo. But speaking of Trunks, he had arrived at his destination. This was the best thing he could do to ensure peace in this timeline. But in his mind, he was thinking, this would make it up to Goku, surely! He had landed at a small cliff face nearby North City. It was a forested area, mostly filled with craggy caves, big enough for certain laboratories. Up above, Bulma and Yamcha saw Trunks touch down and promptly landed themselves a distance away. That's odd. What's Trunks doing at Jiro's lab?
Jiro? Said a quizzical Yamcha. Who's that?
Dr. Jiro. He was a scientist my dad knew, but he went off the rails a while back and took to these backyard bases after the Red Ribbon Army collapsed.
Wait, you mean to tell me that the Red Ribbon Army's still around?
Bulma shushes him.
Keep it down, genius! In any case, Trunks knows something about him that we don't. Does his future have something to do with the doctor or something?
They observe a little more and spot Trunks sinking closer and closer to the lab, trying not to be spotted too early. When he got to the door though, subtlety went right out of it. He had thought about this one last time though before he decided to fire on it. If he removed Jiro right now, his main reason for staying here in the past would be gone. The androids here would no longer exist. It was a bit of a ruthless way of going about things, but it was effective. Jiro would be snuffed out. He powered up to Super Saiyan and decided to hell with it. He'd already caused enough strife. This was the only way he could redeem himself. He knew it! Timelines be damned! Because besides, there weren't any consequences in his mind, so why would that change now? Yamcha and Bulma cowered at the sight of this power. They hadn't seen Trunks go all out before at full power. He had never displayed this level of strength and energy because he didn't need to. Yamcha, he fell backwards and almost got knocked out with a level of ki that he could feel right there. Such a sudden shock of it. Behind the door, Jiro had no idea with what he was about to face. He saw the door start to glow a hot white. Seconds later, it exploded in front of him, almost taking him out there and then, with the doors being blown backwards towards him. Trunks simply stood there and looked mad.
Jiro! I know what you're planning! You and your androids need to be stopped! What? What are you talking about? Can't an old scientist tinker with his experiments in peace?
Trunks marched forward, unnerving the doctor.
Don't play dumb with me! I know what you've got there!
He points to the pods marked 17 and 18. Jiro, instead of looking shocked, was actually really sickened.
I know exactly what I've got there. Complete and utter failures.
Huh? Failures? What do you mean? Jiro felt like he had no choice but to humor this intruder. A young man being able to blow down titanium doors like they were made out of paper? Yeah, that kid needs to be treated with gloves.
Those androids are no use to me. They do not listen to my instruction. They are rebellious teenagers with or without mechanical parts.
Trunks thought for a second. That actually sounded about right. 17 and 18 in his timeline were known for being chaotic and impulsive. But he quickly remembered why he was here.
I don't care! I know what they're capable of, and I cannot allow you to carry on your monstrous experiments!
Jiro, trying to calm this kid down, looked sinisterly back at Trunks.
I have done nothing wrong. All I wish to do is better mankind with my inventions. Humanity, as it is right now, is a blotch on this world. I tried my best with the feckless Red Ribbon Army to realize my goal. In fact, make that goal open for them. But all they did with my inventions was use them to their own ridiculous stunts of global domination. It was almost a blessing in disguise that Son Goku got rid of them. But he turned away. It was too much of a price to pay.
He turned to the pod with a number 16 on it, and then back to Trunks.
It was not my fault that my inventions were used for evil. You've got the wrong end of the stick, young man. How can you possibly know what my intentions are and will be?
Trunks almost decided to humor Jiro and tell him. He could see that the scientist was telling the truth. He hadn't used these androids yet. From what he could tell, they were shut down, not usable. He was acting rashly. He was maybe casting judgment on a crime that hadn't been committed yet. This actually set up a really interesting dichotomy. Was this the right thing to do? But then he thought about Goku. Goku, the little kid that looked up to him all those years ago. No, Trunks had to make it up to him. Trunks' addled mind got the better of him. He tensed up and fired, screaming into the light and rubble that exploded around him. Everything in that lab was destroyed. Well, possibly an exception with that little sub-lab, but Trunks didn't know about that. Back outside, Bulma and Yamcha could hear some words being exchanged, followed by explosions. What was Trunks doing? When the dust cleared, the top of the hill had been blown off, and all that was left were some tiles, some broken instruments, and Trunks, breathing heavily and letting out a mad laugh. Bulma had seen enough. Trunks! The man stopped laughing and saw Bulma coming towards him from the nearby cliff top. He looked horrified and ashamed. She'd seen everything. There's no use running away now. He flew up to her and Yamcha and looked defeated despite getting what he had wanted to do all those years ago. Kill Jiro, and thusly stop the androids. Trunks, she calmly said, gripping his arm. What happened there? Why were you at Jiro's lab? Does this have something to do with our future? Trunks then figures that now was the time to come clean. Yes, my timeline focuses squarely on Dr. Giro and his creations. He had created two beings of incredible and horrific strength. They wiped out my world, and the only ones to survive there were Gohan, myself, and you. Yamcha asked if he'd survived. He hadn't. That made Yamcha think what Trunks just did Well, it's the right thing to do. Well, quite right, dude. Good job in stopping that madman before he had the chance to do any harm. Would you pipe down? Snapped Bulma.
This isn't like you, Trunks. You're usually so calm and methodical. That's what actually drew me to you all those years back. You've changed. What I saw just now was the work of...
She couldn't bring herself to say it, but Trunks knew what she was going to say. A madman. Trunks had made things worse, despite saving this world from Jiro and the androids. He'd lost his cool, and ultimately, his rationale. He turned away and flew off without another word. Bulma and Yamcha this time chose not to follow him. As Trunks got away from them both, he landed, composing himself, pulling out his capsule containing the time machine. It had been fueled up and ready to go for a while now, in case he wanted to head home, his work no longer being needed at one point. But his ego had ensured that that would never happen. But now with his ego being checked, he realized he had no choice but to go. He had basically alienated himself from Goku and Bulma, the first two friends he had made in this timeline. He could not face the shame of being here any longer. The time machine whirred into life, and he knew he had to go. As he flew back to the future, he thought about the last 5 years. In fact, more than that. It had been a wild ride, and he had gotten stronger. He could defeat the androids once he returned, but he was in no mood to act the hero right now. Lately, he had acted like a truly selfish idiot. But that would be the least of his problems. When he got back, he pocketed his time machine and made his way back to the remains of Capsule Corp, his home. At least the machine worked now. He had enough time to ensure that that would be the case in the past. When he got to his home, though, it turned out that there was an unexpected guest, not just his mother. Bulma greeted her son like you would expect, but it said that a young lady had arrived with pink hair and skin, asking for Trunks. She chose to wait, saying she had all the time in the world to see him. When Trunks chose to see her, the young lady's face, which had been quite kind and polite with Bulma, changed into an ashen and contemptuous grimace, casting judgment upon Trunks.
Are we going to do this the easy way or the hard way?
Huh? She reached out her hand.
Come on, hand over the time machine, Trunks.
Trunks got into a stance. Why should I do that? Do you intend to harm us?
Harm you? No. But you've got a lot of explaining to do. For now, though, hand it over. Her face did not match her impish stature and cute attire. It was such a mismatch. It unnerved him, but he complied. He dropped the capsule in her hand and she pocketed it. Good. Easy way it is. You'll be coming with me. Bulma, thank you so much for your tea. I understand that things like this must be scarce. I appreciate the gesture. I'll bring back your boy soon.
And with that, the Supreme Kai of Time and Trunks vanished out of sight. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. But what do you folks think? Is Trunks in even more trouble now than in the original? Will the Supreme Kai of Time be lenient with him? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!